My name is Timothy Schmalz. I'm a Catholic sculptor. I've been sculpting obsessively for more than 30 years. And I went through kind of an artistic crisis when I was in my early 20s, and I began to question the value of spending my whole life actually creating sculptures. I actually was inspired, and I kind of reclaimed my fascination for artwork by my inspiration of the masters, the great artists of the past. And at this point in time, I rejected what was really being presented in the modern mainstream as artwork. I felt there was a huge emphasis on shocking art. If it isn't shocking, it's not art. And I thought back about the artwork that I really loved when I was a teenager growing up, and it was the great masters. It was the great Christian artwork. And at that moment, I realized that there is a massive connection. There's a link between the value of the artwork and what the artwork is actually represented. And so in a sense, I came up with this understanding that in order to have a great piece of artwork, you need a great subject matter. And so throughout the decades of sculpting, I realized that the thinner, the more transparent I create my artwork, the more that message can shine through. And so really I began to realize that the art was just a tool or an instrument to convey a message. And depending on how valuable that message was, would depend on how valuable my art was. And that's how I perceived it. And I began to realize that other people saw the same and kind of had the same reaction to the artwork. I think that artwork and spirituality has always historically been connected, and it's only perhaps in the last century and a half that there's been kind of this separation between spirituality and artwork. It always was used as a tool to get people to become more spiritual. And so it's interesting that these ideas that I have that are not my own, they're historical, seem so weird and new within our culture today. And so to pursue this and to give it everything, to use sculpture as a form of evangelizing is my purpose, really. Started out, I would consider myself a professional sculptor when I was 19 years old, when I dropped out of art school and I just started to full-time do artwork. That's when I had what I would call an artistic conversion. I had a conversion before that when I was baptized Catholic, but it was when I was 17, I had a eureka experience, and I identified myself as a Catholic, as a Christian at that moment in time when I was 17. Before that, I was pretty much agnostic. I went into the art schools, and one of the things that I found was that I quickly came to a dead end of art. I became dead in my spirit about doing it. And there is a limit to that type of artwork, the modern artwork, that you reach if you do it very intense like I did. You will reach that pretty quick, and I did when I was like 19 years old. That I thought, what's the sense? What's the purpose of it? And I was coaxed by my art school and by the surrounding pop art culture to continue to do the shocking. And if it was new, it was valid. Only if it was never been done before, Was it considered artwork? So it got to the point where, and it does in our culture, go to the point where people are pursuing not beauty, not truth, but innovation for the sake of innovation. And at this point, at the age of 19 years old, I began to think, well, there must be something more to art as opposed to just finding the most shocking thing and creating it. And at that point in time, I remember this one night, I had a dream. And I spent the rest of the day, the next day, actually sculpting that dream. It wasn't anything profound. It wasn't anything more than a normal dream a normal person would have. But I spent the whole next day working on articulating and giving form to this dream. And I thought, well, who the hell am I? Why am I so important that I'm a professional Tim Schmalz dream interpreter into art? And I just felt that it was so kind of indulgent and so selfish. And that was a turning point where I thought, and I moved my whole world of artwork into doing spiritual, religious artwork. I looked at the artwork that I loved in the past. I looked at the great artists, Michelangelo, Da Vinci, and I realized they had a common subject matter, a common mission, and that was to represent something epic. And that's why I believe that their artwork was epic, is because what they were representing or trying to give form to was so powerful in itself. And so I dropped out. I probably did one of the most radical things when I was 20, 21. And that is, I converted my studio, in a sense, into only Christian sculpture studio. I didn't worry if what I did was done centuries ago, done 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. I just took a representation of Jesus, I took a representation of Mary, and I just started sculpting. It was that artistic conversion and the feeling that I got from actually creating Christian subjects and bringing them to life, that I just became absolutely devoted to celebrating Christianity through artwork. And there was no going back then. When I decided to only do Christian artwork, it was like that reunification. Christ helped me in one of the darkest periods of my life, and I knew he would again. But then I thought, well, it's not just for darkness, Tim, it's also for light. And it's also to celebrate the positive aspects of life. And so I brought my faith and my beliefs out of this ghetto, out of this dark but very real ghetto, and I tried to bring it into my life in a way that would be not only enjoyed by me, but by other people. I would almost say that if we're not going to preach properly, we might as well just keep our mouth shut. And I think about that with my artwork all the time. I better do a good job, or it's not only going to be invisible, but it could be detrimental. So these are some of the thoughts that during my formative years as a Christian sculptor, I was very sensitive about.